we're back. This is Steve Sanson and Andre Haynes with Veterans in Politics. Hey, Andre, how you doing, brother?
Good. How you doing? Yeah, how you been?
I've been hanging in there.
What you think about this weather?
It's cooled down a little bit.
Yeah, you don't like this rain?
I hope so. We need the rain, I tell you. But today we have two exciting guests. We're going to have Chris Edwards. He's a Republican candidate for Congressional District 1. And then we're going to have Sam Bateman, who is the Deputy District Attorney for Clark County Bad Check Unit and a Henderson City Councilman. But I just want to remind everybody that today, I'm out of breath.
It's all right.
Today is a big day for Veterans in Politics. We are going to be conducting our endorsement interviews for Congressional District 4 and 14 at the Marine Corps Leatherneck Club, 4360 Spring Mountain Road, between 4 to 6 p.m. today. And we invited the whole judicial community to come on down because we understand that in 2014, Andre, every single Clark County District Court seat is up for grabs.
That's going to be interesting.
Yeah. I believe there's about 55 judicial seats that's going to be on the election block in 2014. So, and I already received inquiries from attorneys and the lower courts, muni judges and justice of the peace to have their eyes on this district court benches. So
they do. Now, are there some seats that you could run for that you don't have to be an attorney?
No.
Okay.
That's in Mawapa.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to nominate you.
Oh, you're the man. You're the man. Campaign donations too, because you got to have campaign donations to run for these seats. You got any rants today?
Just the weather. It's hot one day, then it's raining the next, and then it's humid.
Wow.
You know.
All right, well, let's take a commercial break and bring on Chris Edwards. This is Steve Sanson, Andre Haynes for Veterans in Politics. Don't go away, folks. We're going to have Chris Edwards, Republican candidate for Congressional District 1. Hello, my name is Steve Sanson. I'm the president of Veterans in Politics International. This country and state are in trouble with budget cuts, unemployment, foreclosures, teacher shortage, dropout rates, terrorism, and a loss of military service members. The outcome of this election will profoundly affect families, both military and non-military. Military men and women are dying for other countries to have the right to vote. As a former member of the United States Marine Corps and the Army, I know how important it is to keep the voters informed. Log on to the website veteransinpolitics.com. All Americans of voting age need to not only vote, but research your choices. The Veterans in Politics organization has taken a proactive approach to supporting candidates who will have the courage to protect all of our freedoms and our Constitution. Visit our website at veteransinpolitics.com. Don't just talk about who you support. Research your choices and vote.
This is Jim Jonas asking you to listen to Veterans in Politics. Veterans in Politics is a weekly broadcast internet talk show hosted by myself, Jim Jonas, and Steve Sanson, president of Veterans in Politics Incorporated, that airs every Saturday from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. at www.vegasaltnetradio.com. Veterans in Politics' sole purpose is to teach, educate, and inform veterans on issues and the candidates that will affect them. Too many politicians say they support veterans and their issues, but their actions tell a different story. Here at Veterans in Politics, we will expose these politicians by giving them a chance to come in and explain their actions to veterans so veterans can truly make informed decisions. Listen every Saturday to stay informed and to hold politicians accountable for their votes.
Hello, Las Vegas. I'm Karen Steelman, president of Las Vegas Tea Party, bringing your voice to the air Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Are you tired of politics as usual? Do you want to be more involved? Do you want to put a stop to out-of-control government policies? On We the People, we will discuss the political topics of the day and find real solutions. No parties, no labels, just Americans. Be here Wednesdays at 7 p.m. with We the People on KLAV 1230 a.m., where your voice is heard.
Come on, we ain't
back. This is Steve Sanson, Andre Haynes of Veterans in Politics. We have Chris Edwards, Republican candidate for Congressional District 1. Hey, Chris, how you doing today? Could you give us a little bio about yourself?
Sure. I was initially born and raised in Sleepy Hollow, New York. Don't like the snow, so it came out west. However, I graduated from the University of Notre Dame in 87, got immediately commissioned into the Navy as an ensign. Spent 7 years initially active duty, went off active duty in 94, got my graduate degree from the University, or George Washington University in Washington, D.C. Worked for the Secretary of the Air Force as a program manager for 5 years. It was a great job working in the Pentagon. Got to do everything that a public administrator would do, from federal budgeting, contracting, acquisition, some training, policy development, program management. Did a presidential recall in support of Kosovo in 2001. Came back to the States, worked in the Office of Contract and Procurement for the City of Washington, D.C., and then moved out here to Las Vegas in 2002. In 2003, spent most of the time in the Middle East on a mobilization for Operation Iraqi Freedom. Came back home at the end of the year, did some real estate for a bit, got recalled to active duty, or went on an active duty tour as the Chief of Staff for Navy Region Southwest Asia. So went back to the Middle East. And after that led to a job in support of our expeditionary camps, both in the Middle East and in Africa. So I've been kind of bouncing back and forth all over the world for a bit. However, last year I got pretty tired of watching all the things go wrong in our own country. So I decided that it's time for me to come back home and help America.
Well, that's a pretty impressive resume, Chris, and thank you for your service.
Thank you. And thank you for yours as well.
You are running against a former Congress person.
Yes.
In a highly Democrat district. How do you plan to win this thing?
Well, first of all, she does have 51% of the registered voters, but she does not have 49%. And I believe that 49% is willing to come out and support someone like myself, who's going to be focused on solving problems, because she had her chance in Congress and she really did not impress the people. She did not really represent them very well, and I was one of them, quite frankly. So she lost her job in Congress because she did not do for the people what they expected her to do. I do not think that she's changed her policies. I don't think she's changing anything that she's going to offer. And given the situation that we're in right now, of which she is part of the problem, I don't think that the voters want to put her back in Congress.
Okay, Congressional District 1 has changed a little bit since the last election. And to all fairness, the last time she ran she was part of Congressional District 3.
Right.
What changed in Congressional District 1 with the redistricting? Because I know they made a Congressional District 4 now. So now what's different that you feel that you have an edge to win this thing? There's
a couple things. One is they actually made it kind of a rectangle around the heart of the city, so it's a little bit more consolidated rather than spread out. And frankly, they made it harder for any Republican to win because there are more Democrats in there now. However, it's not so much the party, it's not so much the individuals, it's really a matter of the situation the country's in. And the fact that, in this case, my opponent was already in Congress, and she did not do what the people wanted. She voted for the Obamacare when 60% of the people did not want it. She voted for the stimulus, never brought any of that money back home, even though we were suffering the highest unemployment rate, the highest foreclosure rate, the highest economic disaster, one of the highest economic disasters across the country. And she just did not do much for the people here. And people remember that. Even in her state legislature, she raised taxes, but did she really serve the people? I would submit to people, no. I think I can do a much better job. I believe that my experience and my background gives me a lot more federal experience that can play very well to helping us here in Nevada. I think federal budgeting is increasingly important. I've got 5 solid years domestically, and I've also got a lot of overseas experience working with the federal budget because of all the expeditionary camps I had to support. And how were we going to fund them? Where were we going to get the money? How is it going to work out? So I think in those avenues, when money is going to be much tighter, we need somebody like myself who understands the federal budget system better and will know when the opportunities will come along to make sure that we are covered here in Nevada better than we have been before.
Well, foreclosure rates and unemployment is high in the whole state of Nevada, but it's particularly high in Congressional District 1.
Yep.
Well, what are you going to do to overcome that? Well, what are you going to bring? What are you going to bring to the table? Because a lot of politicians they always talk a good game, but what kind of actions are you going to do when you go to if you go to Congress?
Oh, when I go to Congress.
When you go to Congress.
Let's be a little bit optimistic here, because let's face it, any Republican who jumps into this race has got to be a bit optimistic here. But I think that there are basic things that we should be doing in Washington that we're not. And there are some things in Washington that are harmful that they keep doing. The stimulus package, for example, excuse me, they had no plan for how are they going to really execute that money. I mean, everybody, if you just break it down simple, everybody in Nevada should have gotten $3,300 of a benefit. You, me, wife, kids, everybody. I didn't. I bet you didn't either. Okay, why not? Because they didn't make sure that we were taken care of. You want to break it down by states, Nevada should have gotten $20 billion of help. That would have solved probably the entire housing crisis for us. We didn't get that. Why? Because our representatives left that money on the table. Because they don't understand when that money is there, you better have a plan to go get it, or you're getting it for somebody else. And that's not right. That's not why we send them there. So you got to have people in Congress that are going to be ready to take advantage of the money that is there to help the people who are here when they're hurting so bad.
Could you give us your boundaries?
Sure. It goes from Durango in the west to Hollywood in the east, Lake Mead in the north to Russell in the south. It's kind of like a big rectangle around the heart of the city, and it's pretty much an urban area all around. So,
well, how do you feel about No Child Left Behind?
It has failed us.
How so?
Well, there's a lot of children who have been left behind. It's that simple. It was never designed to really take care of every child. I mean, that's insane. Let's take a look at the numbers. What a lot of people don't realize is that the United States governments, both at the federal and the state level, spend somewhere close to $1 trillion a year on education. Now, most of that money is being spent at the state level. When you break down the numbers of the federal government, the Department of Education gets about $100 billion a year. Somewhere around $9 to $10 billion goes to the states. You break down that number over about 65 million kids, and you're talking about each kid getting $150. Now, when it's costing us between $8,000 and $14,000 a year to educate a kid, depending on how expensive your state is, what's another $150? It's nothing. How are you going to possibly save your kid by giving them 2 pairs of sneakers? How's that going to help? It's not. So let's stop pretending it's going to help. One of the best things that we could do is get rid of things that come from the federal government, like No Child Left Behind, because ordinarily all you end up with is a bunch of rules, regulations, and admin paperwork that the state has to then do. So a lot of the money that they actually get to run the program and help the kids in the classroom ends up going to a bunch of high-paid bureaucrats who are just filling out paperwork and sending it back to Washington to sit on somebody's desk or in a file drawer. It does nothing. That's the kind of non-productive stuff that gets sold and pitched in the marketplace, but it does us no good. Now, you look at the other money that's being spent at the state level. Across the board, we're going to be spending somewhere to the tune of $760 billion on kindergarten through 12th grade to educate our kids. Here in Nevada, we've got a 60% failure rate of our children. 60%. Now, I know that if my school system had that kind of a failure rate when I was growing up, my parents would have gone down to the school and raised holy Hades. They would not have sat by. They would not have tolerated for 1 year, much less for 2 or 3 or 10 years. So all this money that's being spent obviously is not being spent correctly. They don't have the right rules. They don't have the right regulations. They don't have the right procedures in place so that the kids can get educated. Because when you've got a 60% failure rate, it's time to cut some heads off. Now, I think the new superintendent is doing a better job in trying to institute the right reforms.
Have you met with him?
I've seen him, but I've not had the opportunity to meet with him personally. But I would love to, so I extend an invitation for lunch. I'll take it, by all means. From what I've seen of him, he's a good guy. He's a smart guy. And quite frankly, he wants to do the right thing. And we here in Nevada need to take advantage of that kind of talent. Because in Washington, D.C., when I was back there in grad school, I was a mentor for one of the high schools, Anacostia High School, which is one of the worst of the schools in there. And trying to reach out to the young kids and help them to make some good decisions is a very hard thing to do. What makes it even harder is when you have bureaucrats and fools who have all these licenses degrees, doctorates, and everything else, who don't understand common sense of how you educate a child. And the fact is, they don't know how to educate the kids there. We had an enormous difficulty just to reach through to the child to say, how can we help you? We're actually here to help you. It shouldn't be that way. When they got I'm going to forget her name now, the Korean superintendent of the schools there, she was there for 5 years or so, and then they had a change of government, and she lost her job.
Who are you talking about?
The superintendent of the Washington, D.C. city schools.
Okay.
I'll figure out the name later. But we need to recognize that we got a superintendent who's reform-minded, who wants to take the bull by the horns and actually get the kids educated. And we need to get out there and support him, both at the state level and the federal level. And at the federal level, we need to make sure that he's got the breadth of leeway so that he can move about and do what he needs to do and not get inundated with a bunch of rules and regulations from Washington.
You know something, Chris, when I interview candidates, I try to go inside their head a little bit. I try to find out how knowledgeable they are, what kind of drive they have, if they're open-minded, if they have any experience.
Sure.
And just to find out a little bit about their character. So I'm gonna ask you an off-the-wall question.
Here we go.
But it might not
off the wall. Which wall is it coming off of? Should I duck or should I hide?
For one, do you believe in conspiracy theories?
Do I believe in? How do you mean?
All right. Do you believe John F. Kennedy was killed by one shooter or two?
I really have no opinion on it.
Okay. The politicians just try to dodge the question.
I now, if I wanted to be dishonest and pander to you, I could have given you an answer one way or the other.
Do you believe Oliver North brought all those weapons into Iran without the knowledge of the president or the vice president of the United States?
Well, there was a great book out by Ed Meese, and I would recommend it. It was called With Reagan, and it details a lot of what went on during that time. And the thing that I found interesting is that in those days, when Iran-Contra blew up,
right,
the Reagan administration took it very seriously. And Reagan himself went to Ed Meese and said, Ed, I don't know, maybe I screwed up, I really just don't know. I want you to go out and find out what happened. And Ed Meese details how he talked to Poindexter and North and all the other folks who were involved. And over the course of a weekend, they were able to put together what had transpired, when and why and all that. And they presented it to Reagan on, I think, Monday morning. And the first thing I really want to say is it's incredible to think that you could get to all the key players and tell them, look, the president wants to know what happened. No hold back, tell me the truth. And they told him the truth. And they put the entire story, pretty much the entire story together. And then they got the few other details within the following weeks. And then they went to the president and said, here it is. And within a few weeks, the president was on the television explaining what had happened and taking responsibility for the actions that had taken place. As opposed to what we're going through now, all too often, where the public officials don't want to take responsibility for their actions and they don't want to, be held accountable, which is crazy. They owe it to us to do their job, to do it right. And if they make a mistake, at least say, we made a mistake.
So if I tell you that the United States knew where bin Laden was all along, would you believe me? If I told you that the United States gave money in the millions and millions of dollars to the Pakistani government to babysit bin Laden, would you believe me? If I told you that every single house that was over there were a shack, except for the bin Laden house, which was a mansion, that was built with monies from the United States, would you believe me?
Having been over in the Middle East and having seen the way that they do their construction, and having seen what the bin Laden compound was like, I would say two things. One is it definitely would be considered a mansion in those countries, but not in our own. Whoever was in there would definitely have been known by the people who surrounded the compound day in and day out. And there's absolutely no way that the Pakistani government couldn't have known who was in that building. It's right next door to its military academy. So the idea that the Pakistanis didn't know, I don't buy it. Can't buy it. Common sense would say there's absolutely no way it could happen. Now, am I going to believe that George Bush and Dick Cheney and Rumsfeld and the rest of them we're actually going to funnel money to Pakistan to build this guy a compound. And no, I don't buy that. No.
Okay. Andre?
I'm kind of on the same page with him. It's hard to not know who's next door. I know that, in today's time, a lot of neighbors may not know each other's name and they may not speak to each other, but when someone's high profile, you're aware of it.
Oh, yeah. Especially in that part of the world. I mean, you know who's got the money and you know who doesn't. And those who don't have the money, they know. And if they know, they're going to come out unless that guy's being protected. Let's face it. You have a $25 million reward on the guy's head. Somebody's going to talk unless you've got the Pakistani government protecting him. Because $25 million doesn't mean anything to you if you're dead and if your entire family is dead. So the Pakistanis, in my mind, were clearly protecting him, clearly knew he was there, and did nothing about it, and have been just a disgrace that should have been dealt with a long time ago.
All right, well, since you brought that up and you say the Pakistani government knew about this and would harbor in a fugitive, as a congressman, what do you plan to do about it? Because we're giving them billions of dollars for anti-terrorist training.
Yeah, and then most of it's being wasted.
Right.
It's a matter of we don't practice the basic military thing of know thy enemy, and then have a plan for what you're going to do about them. The fact of the matter is, you want to take care of Pakistan and put them back in a box. Pretty simple. Go to India, make friends with India, open up all kinds of channels of commerce and trade and politics and everything with India, because that would send one of the strongest messages to Pakistan that we're not going to accept their kind of misbehavior, their misconduct. That's one of the best ways to do it, because Pakistan might have a couple 100 million people. India's got over 1 billion, and they hate each other. So you want to bulwark against that kind of terrorism? You'll get much more bang for your buck by going to India. You want to increase that bang? Go to China. Make sure that they know that our friends in China are not going to tolerate their terrorism stuff coming out of Pakistan, either through Uzbekistan or Afghanistan or any other stan. You want to make other friends in the region, and that alone will put enough pressure and put Pakistan back in their box so that they'll at least start to behave a whole lot better. Take away their money, take away their trade, and then make them deal with their own problems, internal, because they will.
All right, well, let me bring this home a little bit. How do you feel about privatizing the Veteran Administration?
I'd have to see your plan. I'm not going to give you a yes or a no or a thumbs up or thumbs down.
All right, don't you have your own opinion? I mean, I'm sure you've dealt with the VA before. I'm sure that you have known the slow process the abominable process. It's between 2 years to 4 years. It's crazy, and I'm sure that you've known how there's no veteran administration in the rurals. And years ago, I went to D.C. and I was trying to get them to support a veteran insurance card. Instead of putting the money in permits and buildings and land and staff and equipment, put the money back into the veteran to get the veteran the better health care, better surgeon, better prosthetics. That way the veteran could go to any doctor he or she chooses instead of driving 400 miles or getting on a plane or waiting 7-8 months for an appointment. Could go to any doctor, any clinic, any hospital that they see fit. That's what I'm talking about when I say privatize the Veteran Administration. Are we on the same page, Chris?
I think we are. I think we are for this reason. As much as a lot of people want the Veterans Administration to serve the veterans well and do their job great, there are too many examples where they have just fallen flat on their face. I mean, the whole mental health care crisis that we're going to be facing, are facing now, the Veterans Administration has no answer for it. They can't hire enough psychologists to give the help that they need. And yet the help is out there. I actually put together a proposal on how to get mental health care services out to the rural areas because, as you know, we called up a lot of Army reservists, National Guard troops to go over to Iraq and Afghanistan and the Middle East in general. And a lot of them came back hurt, psychologically and physically, but psychologically as well, to the tune of hundreds of thousands. And there's been no plan in place to even begin to approach how to solve that. I worked with a psychologist in our camp in Djibouti who said, here's how we can do it. I went to the commanding general of Walter Reed and presented the plan. And what I was told is, can't do it because you got to go through TRICARE. To which I said, TRICARE is failing them. The VA can't meet the need. Here's a way. And by the way, the Congress had actually put together $600 million to the DOD to help these guys out. Nobody else was giving them a plan because they got stuck on it's got to go through TRICARE. The Congress in this case could have simply said, you know what? We're going to make an exception to the TRICARE rule. We're going to have a pilot project out there to meet the needs of the veterans who are in those rural communities that aren't by a base or aren't by a VA hospital. And we're going to let them be taken care of by local doctors, and we'll take care of the cost. It's not that hard of a program to do. But the constant answer in D.C. is, got to go through TRICARE. Well, okay. Great thing about legislation, you can change it. You can improve it. You can make it better, and you can make it actually do the right things for the people that need to be served. I mean, I've been looking at a lot of the guys who have come back, amputees. 20 years old. They've got 60 years to live, and they're going to be paying the price every day. We owe it to them to give them the best we can. And they're not doing that in Washington, and it's not right. So we need to get more veterans out there to start thinking about them and making sure we take care of them.
Well, so if I understand you correctly, based on some of your responses and your solutions to some of the issues, you like to, in advance, create a contingency plan before you go out and take action, which it sounds like you're saying the federal and state government, when it comes to sending troops overseas or some of the other issues we're dealing with, they didn't have a fail-safe plan, or they didn't have a plan B in effect if something did or did not happen.
I'm sorry, a fail-safe plan for...
If like we talked about the school, we talked about the troops that came back, the soldiers.
You know, a lot of the problems is they don't take the time to do the planning. You know, they don't sit down and talk about great ideas amongst themselves. Maybe it's because they're spending so much time coming up with, talking points or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, the folks there need the time to sit down and talk with one another and say, here's my proposal, what do you think? If it's not good, let's make it better. And if that's not good enough, then let's keep going until it is. The healthcare situation is one of the perfect examples of that. There are certain elements in the healthcare bill that a lot of people like. Whether it's the kids can be on the program till they're 26, whether it's the pre-existing condition part, whether it's the portability, whatever. There are certain elements of the program that a lot of people would agree on and would accept. Okay, that takes all of about 10 pages. Then they stuck on 2,700 other pages that nobody's agreeing on, and a lot of people don't like, and know that's going to hurt us. Why did they have to jam it down everybody's throat rather than recognize that healthcare is too important to simply jam down your throat fast? Because as we say in the military, you want it bad, you get it bad. Well, we got it horrific because they didn't do the job of thinking it through. They didn't do the job of letting people think about it and make it better. And then they just jammed it down our throats against the will of the people. And Dina Titus did that to us here. When we told her don't do it, she did it. So I don't think the people here are going to be very happy about it. And she's got to explain it.
Well, Chris, I'd like to thank you for coming on the show. Could we get your contact information?
Sure. My website is www.edwards4congress.com. The campaign line is 608-0681. And what other? P.O. Box is 13105, Las Vegas, Nevada 89112.
And in one sentence, why should folks go to the voting booth and vote for you?
Because I'm here to solve the problems in the most serious manner and represent them better than anybody would.
Okay, thank you. That's Chris Edwards, Republican candidate for Nevada's Congressional District 1. Don't go away, folks. We're going to have Sam Bateman, Deputy District Attorney for Clark County Bad Check Unit, and the Henderson City Councilman. This is Steve Sanson, Andre Haynes with Veterans in Politics.
Americans have been fooled by politicians about illegal immigration. They make you think that if you bring up this topic, you are a racist. Did you know that America is the only country on this planet that does not enforce its federal immigration laws? For the fear of being called a racist. I am for legal immigration. I was born on the island of Jamaica, became an American citizen, served 12 years in the U.S. military, served in Desert Storm, and received a Presidential Unit Citation, National Defense Medal, and Marine Corps Commendation. Our immigration laws serve a purpose. I understand that this country was founded on immigration, but there is a wrong way and a right way. I'm here to tell you that illegal immigration is breaking our federal laws. Why don't you call me a racist? This is Steve Sanson.
This is Jim Jonas asking you to listen to Veterans in Politics. Veterans in Politics is a weekly broadcast internet talk show hosted by myself, Jim Jonas, and Steve Sanson, president of Veterans in Politics Incorporated, that airs every Saturday from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. at www.vegasallnetradio.com. Veterans in Politics' sole purpose is to teach, educate, and inform veterans on issues and the candidates that will affect them. Too many politicians say they support veterans and their issues, but their actions tell a different story. Here at Veterans in Politics, we will expose these politicians by giving them a chance to come in and explain their actions to veterans so veterans can truly make informed decisions. Listen every Saturday to stay informed and to hold politicians accountable for their votes.
This public service announcement is brought to you by Veterans in Politics International. The Veterans in Politics mission is to teach, educate, organize, and awaken our veterans and their families to select, support, and vote intelligently for a better world, and to protect ourselves from our own governments and a culture of corruption, and to be the political voice for those in other groups that do not have one.
There are too many homeless veterans, and more help is needed from the VA. Every veteran service organization post should adopt a local homeless veteran.
The funding of VA medical centers is inadequate, and building a VA hospital in southern Nevada is moving at a slow pace. The budget has been flatlined for too many years. The VA is too quick to deny claims and too slow to help veterans gather records in support of claims.
Local politicians ignore veterans and their issues. They perceive a lack of organization among their local veterans and that it won't hurt them at election time. Veterans too often vote party, not veteran issues. All veterans should vote in every election.
The news media give inadequate coverage to veteran issues and events. You must send letters to the editor and voice this concern.
Please contact your members of Congress and Senate and urge them to co-sponsor key legislation in supporting our veterans.
Please support Veterans in Politics. And to get more information, go to www.veteransinpolitics.com.
Well, we're back. This is Steve Sanson, Andre Haynes with Veterans in Politics. We have live in studio Sam Bateman, Deputy District Attorney for Clark County's Bad Check Unit, and the Henderson City Councilman. Sam, how you doing today?
Great. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Sam, could you give us a bio about yourself?
Sure. You touched on a few things there. I'm the representative of Ward 4 in the city of Henderson. I won that election back in June of last year.
Against Mike Mayberry.
That's correct. And since 2004, I've been working at the Clark County District Attorney's Office.
Took over from Bernie Zagowski.
Well, I've only been doing that for about a year as well. So, is Bernie a friend of yours?
Yeah. I've known Bernie many years. Mm-hmm. In fact, I know your opponent in that Ward 4 race mm-hmm. for many years as well. He came before us the first time. I believe he was running for mayor.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And we went with I forget what was her name. It was a female that was running.
Is that Amanda Cyphers?
That's the one, Amanda Cyphers. Mm-hmm. Yes. So, yeah, So.
Yeah,
small world, Vegas, Clark County, isn't it?
Right. You get to know, you get involved in things, and you get to know a lot of the same people.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Bad Check Unit, because a lot of people don't know what the heck that is. Explain exactly what you do and the purpose of the Bad Check Unit in Clark County.
The DA's office has had a Bad Check Unit, and many DA's office or prosecuting offices have a bad check type prosecution across the country. Ours in particular is designed for, many people might not know this, that in certain circumstances, if you write a bad check, a check that bounces, it can be a crime. And for victims of those bad checks, under certain circumstances, they can bring their documentation to the Bad Check Unit at the District Attorney's Office and file a complaint form. We review it. If it meets certain criteria, we attempt to contact the bad check writer to see if that person wants to to pay what they owe. And in some circumstances, we actually file criminal charges if they choose not to. Now, it's designed really to not file criminal charges, but to give someone who writes a bad check the opportunity to come in and pay. And it's actually designed that way to avoid us going forward. But sometimes we're forced to go forward on prosecution.
There's a $25 limitation, right? The check has to be more than $25.
It has to. I believe that's correct. It's more than $25, and there's some other limitations.
Statute is what? No older than what? I think it's 2 or 6 years.
Statute limitations for bad check charges are 3 years. So it would have to be, and that's from the date that the check was written.
Right.
And that's when it runs. So those are some of the criteria, things like not taking partial payments. Things like
and
that.
if you don't answer to that letter within the respective time, there could be a warrant for your arrest, and you won't even know about it.
Well, we require...
That's sneaky. That's sneaky, Sam.
Well, we do a lot of things to try to... we first make the person who received the bad check make an effort through certified mail to contact the person that wrote them the bad check to alert them.
So it has to be through certified mail? What happens if it's through regular mail?
They can't... we won't prosecute unless it's been done through certified mail. So and then we go the next step of sending out...
But I got to stop you right there. I've seen it done through regular mail, and they prosecute it.
Well... Maybe that was before I took over.
But the person that wasn't wasn't knowledgeable on how it works, because if they would have came to me and I would have said there has to be certified mail.
Right. Well, sometimes things get past the processes, but I'm guessing that in the end probably the process worked itself out. So hopefully that's true.
Yeah, but by that time this person had a warrant for his arrest.
That's well, that's serious
it wasn't
stuff.
done through certified mail, so.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not going to... I mean, you can't even have a defense when the police officer's coming to put cuffs on you.
Right,
you know?
right.
So.
Well, hopefully those types of things don't get past us too often. I haven't seen it too often.
Have you since you took over office, have you went that distance and got a warrant for arrest?
Oh yeah, we have quite a few filings. We're actually probably every year we have thousands of folks. That come in and have bad checks written to them.
Right.
And we file on those if we don't get responses from the folks that we reach out to see if they want to pay.
You don't look like a prosecutor. Does he look like a prosecutor? You look like more of a public defender. Should go hang out with Phil Cone or.
No. I've been in the DA's office since 2004. I've prosecuted all types of cases: murders, sex assaults, robberies.
Really?
I have, yeah. So
you don't have that face to fit the profile.
What's the profile?
You're a little bit rugged,
You're saying I don't look rugged?
You don't look rugged at all.
Yeah, the young movie star look. Now, does the district attorney, do they take any measures to verify the accuracy of the information that a plaintiff would provide against a defendant? Like if I was going to someone in the room, if I came before you and said this person wrote me a bad check, I sent them a certified letter, here's their address, do you verify whether or not that's really the last known address is accurate? Or
well, we use the check the address that's on the check. And we do actually have resources available to the district attorney's office to follow up on addresses, DMV information, things of that nature. Most of us in Clark County have what's called a scope. If you get a work card, if you get a sheriff's card, driver's license, the law enforcement agencies collect information on you, but it's mostly just identifiers. If you get a permit to carry a concealed weapon, things like that will be on a scope printout. So we also have access to things like that. So we have a lot of access to try to track down relevant information. We also require, in many cases, additional information from victims. If it's a check that doesn't have a lot of documentation and doesn't look quite right to us, we will require them to provide invoices, contracts, things of that nature, and sometimes even go to the next step of reaching out to actually talk to defendants to make sure, if they want to talk to us, to make sure that everything is appropriate. So we do everything we possibly can to make sure that we're doing the right thing.
The way I understand the NRS that governs bad check, I used to do a lot of them when I used to do small claims court cases. It says that that the check writer has to, for it to be a crime, has to knowingly write a check without the sufficient funds in that check.
Right.
I mean, in that checking account. So let me give you a hypothetical. Let's say the check writer received $1,000 from a different person that gave him a check, and he deposited that in his account, and now he wrote a check to person B for $200. Okay, his balance was at zero before he got the $1,000. So now he's thinking, hey, I have $1,000 in my bank. Okay, I could write this $200 check, not knowing that $1,000 check bounced, and he's back at zero. So now he just bounced the check to plaintiff B. Okay, so now he didn't take care of plaintiff B. He said, man, this guy bounced a check with me. I'm screwed. I don't have the money to put in there. I can't cover that check. And now plaintiff B decided to go to the bad check unit. So now you guys are contacting plaintiff B because of a check he wrote. But theory, he didn't knowingly write a check thinking that he didn't have money in his account. Now, what happens if he says, and goes to court? Would that be a good defense? Or because the way the NRS is written, you have to knowingly write a check knowing that you don't have funds in there.
Well, as I said earlier, certainly not every check that is written that ends up bouncing amounts to a crime. Certainly there's the difference between civil liability and criminal liability. There's no question that the person who wrote the check to B, not knowing that the money would be in their account, probably owes the person they wrote the check to for whatever it is they got. But it may not amount to what an intent to defraud or to commit a crime. And if that's the case, then the information is provided to us. Then as prosecutors, we have an obligation to take a look at that evidence and see whether we can prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. If we can't, then we don't prosecute. And so things like that happen. They happen not only in bad check cases, it happens in all different types of cases. Sometimes information is brought to you at a later time that might show that you don't have all the proof necessary to prove your case beyond a reasonable doubt. And as prosecutors, we have an ethical obligation to not do that in those particular cases. So certainly someone is always able to provide exculpatory information to the charges, and in a case like that you might present, that might be one that we would not prosecute. And
have anybody ever presented something like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I've been a prosecutor since 2004, and I've had it whether it's bad check cases, whether it's stolen vehicle cases. You'll have defense attorneys or the defendant themselves provide information to you that would suggest that they have a defense. And you take those into account and make your decision as to whether it's appropriate to move forward or to dismiss the case. Sometimes there's a question about that particular evidence, and oftentimes, we negotiate cases as well based upon the relative strength of the evidence in the case.
So how many prosecutors you have working under you?
Oh, under me, I'm the only prosecutor. I've got a staff of 20 plus individuals who, because of how many people come to the bad check unit to provide to seek relief for people who've written bad checks to them. Yeah.
Okay, so you make your money off of the interest on the or is there a fee that has to be paid in addition to the check?
Correct. The bad check unit is not generally funded by us taxpayers. It's funded through statutory fees that are put on top of the amount face value of the check, and that's all by statute provided to us by the state legislature, and it's on a sliding scale depending on how much the check was written for. And so in order we have it's all kind of actually included in state statute. Generally it's added on to the total amount of restitution paid, and then that money is what pays for the salaries and the office equipment, the paper, all of those things. They keep the bad check unit running. Mm-hmm.
Well, how do you feel about your new boss?
Well, I like Steve Wolfson. I've worked with him since I started in the district attorney's office. He's a real straight shooter. He's a knowledgeable person. He's been in the community a long time, has a wealth of different experiences, and I think he's getting up to speed fast and learning that it's a tough job.
Well, I'm going to bring in you being a deputy district attorney.
and you being a Henderson City Council person on this one, because these two kind of go hand in hand with this particular case. Sergeant Seacats, the individual that was kicked the diabetic victim in the head 5 times. You being a deputy district attorney, I'm sure that you have your personal ruling of that, and you being a Henderson City Councilman, you guys forced out the Henderson. Oh, correct me if I'm mistaken. Juana Chambers, who was the Henderson police chief, forced her to retire, and came up with a settlement for with the fiscal affairs. Came up with a settlement to the diabetic victim. His name escapes me. Sabrine, I believe it was a tune of $300,000 he made off of that, and then Sergeant Seacats still remains a Henderson police officer. Your input, because you're surrounded, being a deputy district attorney and being a Henderson City Council person, and that happened in your jurisdiction, and I'm sure that you had a lot of say what took place with different issues.
Well, I had no say with regard to the district attorney's decision, and in fact, I deliberately made sure that I had no communication with Mr. Wolfson or any of the other deputies that he may have consulted about how to handle that case when the information came. I'm not privy to some of the police reports that were provided in furtherance of District Attorney Wolfson's decision in that regard. It was a very unfortunate situation that we all had to witness on the video, and I think our city council we were taken a bit by surprise by it, and we were very, very upset by it. It was an incident that took place in 2010. Obviously, I didn't take my seat until mid-2011. Right. And then the first time that I had heard about the incident, it was within approximately a week of when this settlement that you talked about was actually on our agenda, because we had to vote up or down on whether to settle it. Obviously, I thought the settlement was appropriate. I thought some of the conduct was inappropriate. Some of the training and some of the things that had been in place, in my mind, potentially caused us civil liability at the city. So, my role in that regard is somewhat twofold. One is to try to protect the taxpayers' money, because we're providing a settlement, so we want to do the right. But at the same time, we want to do the right thing when maybe we're in the wrong. And I think we were in the wrong in that case, and we did what we had to do in a short order. I think we've done everything we can to make changes to the city of Henderson. We have a new police chief that's up for ratification at the next city council meeting. We've had some retirements that are unrelated, so we have really what will be a new command team at the city of Henderson. We've made some changes to our city manager, our city attorney. We really, in 1 year,
you guys made a lot of changes.
We
over
did.
There.
We did.
But do you think Juana Chambers should have been forced to resign?
I think it was time to take a new direction with the City of Henderson Police Department.
Okay. And do you think Sergeant Seacats should remain employed, especially as a law enforcement provider?
Well, any discipline that took place and the decisions that would have made that determination, unfortunately, took place long before I took. There's really nothing that I can do at this point to make a
Your
change.
Personal opinion.
I'd have to look at what their the training that he was given and the discipline that he was given.
Let me ask you another question then. If an employee, you're the employer. If an employee cost you $300,000, would you still have that employee on your payroll?
Well, you have to realize. Well, from a private sector, you know, there's a big difference between the private sector and the public sector. There are union contracts in place. That there are civil service rules that we have to abide by. You've seen in the news, probably in many years, where government employees are terminated and then go through arbitration and get their jobs back. So that's the nature of public employment. And when you are going to terminate someone, you have to make sure that all your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed. Because otherwise, we've seen it. If you don't do it the right way, they have certain entitlements to their job, and if they're under a contract, they have the right to have that job, and they have a right to a grievance procedure that informs the city. So, I was not pleased with ultimately what happened in terms of everything in the investigation and the discipline, but it's ultimately a human resources matter, and we are at the position we're at now. I'm at the position that when I came in, most of this had already taken place, and I was in a position of having to address something that I had no control over at the time because I wasn't there. So, it puts you in a really difficult position to try to you're almost kind of trying to clean up a mess, if you will, rather than being able to be proactive. And I think we've done everything we can from a city council standpoint to try to put in place individuals who are going to change some of the procedures. I know we've already reduced some of our use of force incidents in Henderson over the last couple of years as a result.
I know you guys got rid of the kicking in the head, right?
Well, we've clarified when things are appropriate, when use of force is appropriate, and when it's not.
That's part of deadly force, kicking somebody in the head.
Absolutely.
Anything happen to deal with the head is part of deadly force.
I think that's my understanding of our policy, and there are times when officers are in a position where they need to use deadly force. We can all understand that, and there's times when it's not appropriate. And I think you'll see across Clark County, all of the law enforcement agencies are looking at their policies to try to make sure that we're reducing the number of these incidents.
The water rates is one of the issues in Henderson. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it's an issue across the valley. Are you referring specifically to what we've done in Henderson?
Yes.
Right. What's happened over the last however many years that we've been growing extremely fast is we've been paying for infrastructure through growth. So when either houses are being built or commercial buildings are being built, we make them pay a significant amount to connect to the system. And when growth stopped, those funds stopped coming in. They stopped coming in at the Water Authority. They stopped coming in at our local jurisdictions who provide your water. That's who you get your water bill from. And it's been a huge hole to pay for existing infrastructure that we've issued bonds for. It's essentially like your credit cards coming due. And so we have the city of Henderson had to do some rate adjustments, and then obviously the Water Authority, which has been the subject of the news in the recent days. So we are still working towards trying to figure out the most fair and equitable way for all of us to pay for the infrastructure that now exists here, in light of the fact that we don't have that revenue coming from growth. And it's a very, very difficult question.
I could have you on about a couple of hours because you wear two hats, and I wanted to ask you how do you arrive to get Josh Reed as your city attorney? Because I've heard some stuff myself. The veterans of politics, we have friends everywhere, even when they say they're not, but they pass information. But that's going to take probably about a 15, 20-minute answer, so I'm not even going to go there with that. But Sam, I'd like to thank you for coming on the show.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'd like to have you back.
Let me know.
Okay. Are you going to be at the Department Forum 14 interviews today?
Where are they?
The Marine Corps League.
And I hadn't
Spring Mountain and Orville.
But I'll see if I can swing up.
By American Shooters. I know you got a CCW, right?
No, well, I don't have a CCW. I do have a firearm.
All right, Sam, you want to give us any contact information, how they can get a hold of you or anything?
Absolutely, and it's on the City of Henderson website, but you can email me at sam.bateman@cityofhenderson.com.
Well, that's Sam Bateman, Deputy District Attorney for Clark County's Bad Check Unit and a Henderson City Councilman. This is Steve Sanson, Andre Haynes with Veterans in Politics, and hopefully I'll see you good folks at the Marine Corps Leatherneck Club between 4 and 6 today for the Department's Forum 14 interview. Thank you so much.
Views and opinions expressed on this program were those of the hosts and guests and did not necessarily reflect those of Vegas All Net Radio, its affiliates, or its parent company.